The war between humans and the Volanthi had lasted for 200 years. Millions had died on both sides. Planets had burned. Entire star systems had become graveyards of broken ships and lost souls. Now, at last, the fighting would stop. The Galactic Council had forced both sides to sign a peace treaty, but peace between old enemies was fragile. It needed something stronger than words on paper. It needed a bond that could not be broken. It needed a marriage. Princess Empress Selvaria Ketheron stood in her private chambers aboard the royal flagship. She was tall, nearly 8 feet, with skin that glowed soft blue in the dim light. Her eyes were large and silver, like twin moons. Her hair flowed like liquid metal down her back. She was considered the most beautiful woman in the Volanthi sovereignty. She was also furious. "A human," she said, her voice cold as deep space. "They expect me to marry a human." Her advisor, an elderly Volanthi named Koreth, bowed his head. "The council believes it will cement the peace, Your Highness. A union between our greatest house and their most decorated warrior. Their most decorated warrior." Selvaria laughed. But there was no joy in it. What does that even mean? They live for barely a century. Their bodies are soft and weak. They cannot see in the dark. They cannot breathe underwater. They break so easily. She turned to the window and stared at the stars. Her people had ruled these stars for 10,000 years. They had built empires while humans were still living in caves and hitting each other with rocks. And yet somehow, impossibly, those same primitive creatures had fought the mighty Volanthi to a standstill. "What is his name?" she asked finally. "Commander Marcus Cole, Your Highness. He led the defense of Proxima Station. He destroyed 3 of our dreadnoughts during the Battle of the Red Nebula." Selvaria's jaw tightened. She remembered the Red Nebula. 20,000 Volanthi warriors had died there. Her own cousin had commanded one of those dreadnoughts. "Show me his image." Koreth touched a panel, and a hologram appeared in the center of the room. Selvaria studied the figure before her. The human was small, perhaps 6 feet tall, barely reaching her shoulder. His skin was a dull brown color, nothing like the beautiful luminescence of her people. His hair was black and cut short. His eyes were dark and ordinary. He wore a simple military uniform with no decorations, no jewels, no signs of status. He stood straight, his hands clasped behind his back, his face showing no expression. "This is the great human warrior?" Selvaria asked. "He looks like a servant. He looks like something we would keep as a pet. He is highly respected among his people, Your Highness. His people are insects compared to us." She waved her hand, and the hologram disappeared. "When is this farce supposed to happen?" "The wedding is scheduled for the Festival of 10,000 Stars. It will be broadcast across the entire galaxy. 400 billion beings will watch." Selvaria smiled, and it was not a kind smile. "Good. Then 400 billion beings will see exactly how little this human means. They will see that this marriage is not a union of equals. It is a conquest. The human will learn his place." She turned back to the window. "Make the arrangements. I want the ceremony to be unforgettable." 3 months later, Marcus Cole arrived on Volanthi Prime. The planet was beautiful in ways that hurt to look at. Towering crystal spires rose from seas of liquid silver. Floating gardens drifted through skies painted with colors that had no names in human languages. Everything glowed with soft inner light. Marcus stepped off the transport ship alone. He carried a single bag containing everything he owned. He wore his dress uniform, pressed and clean, with his medals displayed on his chest. A delegation of Volanthi nobles waited on the landing platform. They towered over him, their glowing faces showing open disgust. None of them bowed. None of them offered greeting. They simply stared at him like he was a stain on their perfect world. "Commander Cole," one of them said finally. "Follow us." They did not tell him their names. They did not ask about his journey. They simply turned and walked away, moving so fast that Marcus had to jog to keep up. He did not complain. He did not ask them to slow down. He simply followed, his eyes taking in everything around him. The palace was the largest structure Marcus had ever seen. It could have held entire cities inside its walls. Servants watched from shadows as he passed. their silver eyes wide with curiosity. They gave him quarters in the oldest part of the palace. The rooms were dusty and cold. The furniture was ancient and broken. The windows looked out onto a gray courtyard where nothing grew. "The Princess Empress will summon you when she wishes to see you," his guide said. "Until then, you will remain here." Marcus nodded. "Thank you." The Volanthe seemed surprised by his politeness. He said nothing more, simply turned and left. Locking the door behind him, Marcus stood alone in his new prison. He looked around at the crumbling walls and the moldy ceiling. He walked to the window and stared at the dead courtyard. Then he smiled. He had known this would not be easy. His commanders had warned him. His friends had begged him not to go. His own mother had wept when he told her about the marriage. But someone had to do it. Someone had to take the first step toward real peace. Someone had to prove that humans could stand among the stars as equals, not as servants or pets or conquered subjects. Marcus Cole had volunteered because he believed in that future. He believed in it enough to leave everything he knew. He believed in it enough to marry someone who hated him before they ever met. He opened his bag and pulled out a small tablet. On it were files he had been studying for 2 years. Language lessons, history texts, cultural analyses, everything known about the Volanthe, their customs, their beliefs, their secrets. He had a lot of work to do. Outside his window, the sun set over Volanthe Prime, painting the sky in shades of purple and gold. Somewhere in the palace, the Princess Empress was planning his humiliation. She thought she knew what humans were. She thought they were weak. She thought they were simple. She thought they would break. She was about to learn how wrong she was. Marcus sat down at the broken desk, opened his tablet, and began to read. He had 3 months until the wedding. 3 months to prepare. 3 months to show the galaxy what humanity could do. He did not intend to waste a single moment. The Cathedral of Eternal Light was the most sacred place in the Volanthe sovereignty. It was carved from a single mountain of living crystal that pulsed with soft rainbow colors. Its halls could hold 3 million people. Its spires reached so high they touched the clouds. On the day of the wedding, 5 million Volanthe filled every corner of the cathedral. They stood shoulder to shoulder, their luminescent skin creating a sea of soft blue light. Outside, billions more watched on giant screens that floated above the city. Across the galaxy, 400 billion beings tuned in to watch. This was the event of the century, the marriage that would end the greatest war in recent memory. The union of the proud Volanthe princess and the human soldier. Everyone wanted to see what would happen. Marcus Cole waited at the entrance to the cathedral. He wore his finest uniform, the same one his father had worn, and his grandfather before him. It was simple compared to the flowing robes of the Volanthe nobles, but it was clean and pressed and filled with meaning. 2 guards opened the massive doors. Sound crashed over Marcus like a wave. 5 million Volanthe watched as he stepped into the cathedral. The walk to the altar was nearly a mile long. The floor was polished crystal that reflected his image with every step. On both sides, Volanthe warriors stood in perfect lines. They were all over 7 feet tall. Their armor gleamed. Their weapons hummed with barely contained energy. They stared at Marcus with open hatred as he passed. Some of them whispered insults in their language, words they thought he could not understand. Marcus kept walking. His face showed nothing. His steps never faltered. He looked straight ahead, his back straight, his chin high. The altar was a raised platform of pure white crystal. Ancient priests stood around it, their robes heavy with symbols and jewels. Above them, a great dome showed the stars themselves, projected in perfect detail. Marcus climbed the steps and took his position. Then he waited. 10 minutes passed, then 20, then 30. The crowd began to whisper. This was unusual. This was not proper. What was happening? 40 minutes. Marcus stood perfectly still. His legs did not shake. His expression did not change. He simply waited, patient as stone. Finally, after 47 minutes, the great doors at the back of the cathedral opened again. Princess Empress Selvaria entered, and 5 million beings drew breath. She was stunning. Her gown was woven from strands of captured starlight. It flowed behind her for 30 feet, carried by 100 servants. Her crown was made of frozen tears from the moons of her homeworld. Her skin glowed brighter than anyone had ever seen. She moved slowly, savoring every moment, forcing the entire galaxy to wait for her. When she finally reached the altar, she looked down at Marcus with cold silver eyes. She was 2 feet taller than him. She used every inch of that height to make him feel small. "So," she said, speaking in High Volanthi, the language of the royal court. "This is what humanity sends. This is their finest." The words were picked up by the broadcast systems and sent across the galaxy. Every viewer heard them. Every human watching felt the insult. Marcus said nothing. The head priest began the ceremony. He spoke in High Volanthi, reciting words that were 5,000 years old. The language was complex, filled with hidden meanings and subtle poetry. Selvaria watched Marcus the entire time, waiting for confusion to show on his face. His translator bead could only handle basic Volanthi. The high language was beyond its ability. He would stand there looking foolish, understanding nothing. The priest turned to Marcus. "Human," he said, using the simplest form of address, almost an insult. "Do you accept this bond? Do you offer your brief life to serve the eternal glory of the Volanthi sovereignty?" The cathedral fell silent. Billions watched. Marcus looked up at Selvaria. He looked at the priest. He looked at the crowd of hostile faces surrounding him. Then he opened his mouth and spoke in perfect High Volanthi. "I accept this bond, Princess Empress. Not as a servant, but as an equal. As my people have always stood, as we will always stand." His accent was flawless. His grammar was precise. His word choice carried exactly the right formal weight. He spoke like a noble born to the high court, not a human soldier from a distant world. Selvaria's glow flickered. It was a Volanthi tell, a sign of shock that she could not hide. Around her, the priests exchanged stunned looks. The warriors shifted uncomfortably. "You speak our language," she said, forgetting to hide her surprise. "I have had time to learn," Marcus replied, still in High Volanthi. 2 years of study. Humans learn quickly when we need to. Our short lives teach us not to waste time. He turned to the crowd, raising his voice so all could hear. "I come here not as a conquered subject. I come as a representative of humanity. We are young compared to your great civilization. We are small. We do not live long, but we have stood against your fleets. We have held our ground. We have earned our place among the stars." He looked back at Selvaria. "I offer you partnership, Princess Empress. True partnership. Not submission. Not service. I offer you the strength of a people who have crawled from nothing to reach the stars in a handful of centuries. Judge us not by our years, but by our will." Silence filled the cathedral. No one moved. No one spoke. The head priest cleared his throat. "Princess Empress, do you accept this bond?" Selvaria stared at Marcus. Her plans had crumbled. Her humiliation had been turned against her. The galaxy had seen a human stand before her, not broken, not ashamed, but proud. She could refuse. She could end this now and restart the war. She could destroy this small man who had dared to speak to her as an equal. But 400 billion beings were watching. The peace treaty hung in balance, and somewhere, deep inside her, something whispered that she had made a terrible mistake in underestimating this creature. "I accept," she said finally, the words forced through tight lips. The priest bound their hands together with ribbons of light. The ceremony continued. The vows were spoken. The marriage was sealed. When it was done, when the prayers were finished and the crowds began to cheer, Selvaria leaned down and whispered in Marcus's ear, "You surprised me today, human. It will not happen again." Marcus smiled. "I certainly hope it will, Your Highness. I have so many surprises left to share." She pulled back, searching his face for mockery, for fear, for anything she could use against him. She found only calm confidence. The human had won the first battle. But the war was far from over. Selvaria swept away from the altar, her servants scrambling to follow. Marcus watched her go, then turned to face the cheering crowd. Somewhere out there, humans were watching. His people, his family, his friends. He straightened his uniform and walked down the crystal steps with the dignity of an emperor. He had promised them he would not fail. He intended to keep that promise. The months after the wedding became a silent war. Selvaria could not openly attack her new husband. The peace treaty forbade it. The galaxy was watching, but she could make his life miserable in 1,000 small ways. She kept him in those ruined quarters. She banned him from all important meetings. She refused to eat with him, speak with him, or acknowledge him in public. When foreign diplomats visited, she introduced him as the human, without using his name. Marcus accepted all of this without complaint. He thanked servants who ignored him. He smiled at nobles who insulted him. He never raised his voice. He never showed anger, but he did not sit idle. Within a week of the wedding, Marcus had repaired his broken quarters himself. He fixed the plumbing, cleaned the walls, and turned the dead courtyard into a small garden. The servants who came to spy on him found him covered in dirt, planting flowers from earth that his mother had sent him. "What are you doing?" one servant asked, unable to hide her curiosity. "Building something," Marcus replied. "Would you like to help?" No Valanthi noble had ever asked a servant for help. It simply was not done. But Marcus asked, and slowly, cautiously, some of them began to say yes. He learned their names. He asked about their families. He listened to their problems, small issues that had gone ignored for years because no one important cared enough to hear them. The heating system in the servants' wing had been broken for decades. Marcus spent 3 days fixing it himself, using skills he had learned as a boy on a farming colony. The next morning, 50 servants woke up warm for the first time in memory. Word spread quietly through the palace. The human is different. The human listens. The human helps. When Selvaria heard the rumors, she laughed. He tends gardens and fixes pipes. How noble. He has become exactly what he is. A servant. But her advisor Korath did not laugh. He is building loyalty, Your Highness. Every servant he helps becomes his eyes and ears. Servants are nothing. Servants are everywhere. They hear everything. They know everything. Korath hesitated. He is not as simple as he appears. Selvaria dismissed the warning. She had bigger concerns. Trade negotiations with the merchant worlds were coming, and she needed to prepare. The merchant worlds were neutral powers who sold technology to everyone. Their support was valuable. Their trade deals could strengthen the sovereignty for generations. When the merchant delegation arrived, Selvaria prepared a grand welcome. She gathered her finest economists and negotiators. She studied the complex history of past agreements. She was ready. Then she learned that the merchants had already met with Marcus. "What do you mean they met with him?" she demanded. Korath looked uncomfortable. He invited them to dinner in his quarters. They talked for 6 hours. About what? "I do not know, Your Highness." But this morning, they seemed very impressed. Selvaria stormed into the negotiation chamber, ready to repair whatever damage the foolish human had caused. The merchant delegation waited, their lizard-like faces unreadable. "Princess Empress," the lead merchant said, "your consort has prepared an interesting proposal." Before Selvaria could speak, the merchant activated a hologram. It showed trade routes, resource allocations, and partnership structures so complex that Selvaria could barely follow them. "He spent 3 weeks reading our trade history," the merchant continued. 1,400 years of records. He found patterns we ourselves had missed. His proposal would increase efficiency by 40%. Selvaria stared at the hologram. She understood perhaps half of what she was seeing. The human had somehow mastered in weeks what her experts had spent lifetimes studying. "Is this acceptable to you?" she asked carefully. "More than acceptable. It is brilliant." The merchant's eyes gleamed with admiration. "We have negotiated with many species over many centuries. We have never seen anyone learn so quickly." The trade agreement was signed that afternoon. It was the most favorable deal in Valanthi history, and everyone knew that Marcus Cole had made it happen. That evening, Selvaria found Marcus in his garden, tending to his earth flowers under the light of 3 moons. "How did you do it?" she demanded. He looked up, unsurprised by her arrival. "Do what, Your Highness?" "The trade deal. The servants. All of it. You have been here less than 6 months, and you have accomplished more than nobles who have worked their entire lives." Marcus stood, brushing dirt from his hands. "May I be honest with you?" She said nothing, which he took as permission. "Humans do not live long. You know this. You have mocked me for it many times. But have you ever thought about what that means? Really thought about it?" He gestured at the palace around them. "Your nobles have centuries to accomplish their goals. They can afford to move slowly, to waste time, to put off until tomorrow what should be done today. Time is cheap to them." His dark eyes met her silver ones. "For humans, time is the most precious thing that exists. We cannot waste it. We learn quickly because we must learn quickly. We work hard because we have no choice. Every hour matters. Every day counts." He smiled. "You gave me broken quarters, and I saw an opportunity to build goodwill. You banned me from meetings, and I found other ways to learn. You tried to isolate me, and I made allies of the people you overlooked." Selvaria felt something she had not expected. Respect. She pushed it down, but it would not stay buried. "You could have told me your plans for the trade deal," she said. "You could have worked with me. Would you have listened?" She had no answer, because they both knew she would not have. "I am not your enemy, Princess Empress," Marcus said softly. "I never was. I came here to build peace, not to fight. I came here hoping that someday you might see me as a partner instead of a pet." He returned to his flowers, leaving her standing in the moonlight. Selvaria watched him for a long moment. This small, fragile creature who should have broken under her contempt, this human who refused to stay in the place she had assigned him. She thought about what Korath had said. He is not as simple as he appears. No, he was not simple at all. She turned and walked away, her mind full of thoughts she did not want to examine too closely. Behind her, Marcus smiled and continued his work. The garden was growing beautifully. Roots were spreading deeper than anyone could see. Soon, they would be strong enough to support anything. The assassination attempt came on the night of fading suns. It was a sacred holiday, one day every year, when all power systems in the palace were shut down for ritual cleansing. The ancient traditions demanded that the Volanthi spend this night in darkness, remembering the time before their ancestors learned to glow. The darkness made it perfect for murder. Marcus was reading by candlelight when he heard the first sound. A soft scrape outside his door. A whisper of movement that did not belong. He set down his book and stood slowly. His eyes moved to the ceremonial blade hanging on the wall. It was decorative, a gift from a minor noble who had tried to insult him with its poor quality. The door exploded inward. 12 warriors poured through the opening. They were Volanthi purists, fanatics who believed the peace treaty was treason and the human consort was an abomination. They wore no uniforms. They carried no identification. If they succeeded, no one would ever prove who sent them. They were faster than Marcus, stronger than Marcus. Each one stood 7 feet tall and had been trained to kill since childhood. Their claws could tear through metal. Their reflexes were 3 times faster than any human. Marcus should have died in the first second. He did not. He grabbed the blade from the wall and moved, not away from the attackers, but toward them, into them. So close that their size became a disadvantage in the narrow room. The first warrior swung a massive fist. Marcus ducked under it and drove his blade into the joint of the warrior's leg. The Volanthi screamed and fell. The second warrior was faster. His claws caught Marcus across the chest, drawing blood. But Marcus did not fall. He twisted, using the warrior's own momentum to throw him into a third attacker. Pain exploded through his body, a blow to his back, a slash across his arm. Something cracked in his ribs. Blood ran into his eyes from a cut on his forehead. Still he fought. The warriors had expected a quick kill. They had expected a soft human who would die easily. Instead, they found something that refused to stop, something that kept moving, kept fighting, kept hurting them, no matter how badly it was injured. One by one, they fell. The fight lasted 43 seconds. When it was over, Marcus stood alone among 12 bodies. His blade was slick, with alien blood. His left arm hung at a wrong angle. His breath came in ragged gasps. He could not see out of his right eye. He was not sure he could walk. He knew that some of his injuries were serious enough to kill him if he did not get help soon, but he was standing. And they were not. The emergency lights activated, flooding the room with red light. Alarms began to scream. Guards rushed through the halls, drawn by the noise. Selvaria arrived minutes later, surrounded by her personal guards. She stopped in the doorway, staring at the scene before her. Marcus looked up at her. Blood covered half his face. His uniform was torn to ribbons. He swayed on his feet but did not fall. "Apologies for the mess, Princess Empress," he said, his voice steady despite the pain. "They interrupted my reading. The physician priests came next. They were the finest healers in the sovereignty, trained to treat injuries that would kill ordinary beings. Even they were shocked by what they found. How is he alive? One priest whispered to another. These wounds should have killed him 10 times over. Humans, the other replied, equally confused. They do not make sense. They worked through the night, repairing torn flesh and broken bones. Marcus remained conscious through most of it, refusing the drugs that would have let him sleep. I need to stay alert, he explained. In case they send more. Selvaria stayed as well. She told herself it was duty. She told herself she needed to question him about the attack, but she remained long after her questions were answered, watching him fight through pain that would have broken most Valanthi. How did you survive? She asked finally. Marcus thought for a moment. Do you know what an endurance predator is? She shook her head. Long ago, on Earth, humans did not have claws or fangs or great strength. We were not the fastest animals. We were not the strongest. By every measure, we should have gone extinct. He winced as a priest stitched a wound on his shoulder. But we had one advantage. We could keep going. We could chase prey across vast distances, running for hours, for days, until our targets collapsed from exhaustion. We did not need to be faster. We just needed to never stop. That is madness, Selvaria said. Perhaps, but it is who we are. Marcus looked at her with his one good eye. Your assassins were better than me in every way. Faster, stronger, more skilled. They expected me to die when I should have died. They expected me to give up when continuing made no sense. He smiled, though it clearly hurt. Selvaria sat in silence for a long time. The physician priests finished their work and left, warning that Marcus needed rest. She did not leave. Tell me about your world, she said finally. Tell me about Earth. So Marcus talked. He told her about the blue oceans and green forests of his home planet. He told her about the wars humans had fought against each other, bloody conflicts that made the Valanthi War look small. He told her about the plagues they had survived, the disasters they had overcome, the countless times they should have been destroyed. We are not special, he said softly. We have no great gifts, no glowing skin, no long lives. We are just stubborn. Too stubborn to know when we are beaten, too stubborn to accept defeat. He closed his eye, exhausted. Sometimes that is enough. Selvaria watched him sleep. This fragile creature who had killed 12 warriors with a decorative blade. This human who spoke of his people with such quiet pride. She thought about everything she had believed about humans. That they were weak. That they were primitive. That they were less than her people. She had been wrong. So terribly wrong. When Marcus woke the next morning, he found Selvaria still beside his bed. She had not slept. Her silver eyes were troubled. I owe you an apology, she said. Many apologies. For the way I have treated you. For the things I have said. Marcus said nothing, waiting. I thought I knew what you were. I was blind. She reached out and took his unbroken hand. I would like to start again. Not as enemies. Not as strangers forced together by politics. But as something else. Something better. Marcus squeezed her hand gently. I would like that very much, Your Highness. Selvaria, she said. My name is Selvaria. For the first time since arriving on Valanthi Prime, Marcus saw her truly smile. Outside the window, the sun rose over the crystal spires, and a new chapter began. The Kethvar came without warning. They were ancient, older than any civilization in the known galaxy. Their empire had ruled 1,000 star systems when the Valanthi were still swimming in their primordial oceans. They had watched the war between humans and Valanthi with patient eyes, waiting for the perfect moment. That moment had arrived. Their first attack destroyed 17 worlds in a single day. Their black ships moved faster than anything the Valanthi had ever seen. Their weapons cut through the strongest shields like paper. The God Emperor summoned his war council. The greatest military minds in the sovereignty gathered in the Hall of Strategy, their faces grim with fear. Maps showed the enemy advance in glowing red lines, spreading across the galaxy like a disease. "We must retreat," the High Admiral said. "Fall back to the core worlds. Consolidate our defenses. That will take centuries," another general argued. "By the time we are ready to fight back, we will have lost half our territory. Better to lose half than to lose everything." The arguments continued for hours. Plans were proposed and rejected. Strategies were debated endlessly. The Volanthi thought in terms of decades and centuries. They planned for wars that their great-grandchildren would finish. Marcus sat in the corner, listening. Selvaria had insisted he be allowed to attend, and no one had dared argue with her. When there was a pause in the shouting, he stood. "May I speak?" The High Admiral looked at him with barely hidden disgust. What could a human possibly contribute to this discussion? "A different perspective," Marcus said calmly. "If you will allow it." The God Emperor, ancient and tired, nodded from his throne. "Let him speak." Marcus walked to the strategy table. The holographic maps cast strange shadows on his face. "You are all thinking like immortals?" he said. "You are planning a war for future generations to fight. But my people do not have future generations to sacrifice. We have only now. Always now." He touched the controls, and the map changed. Instead of retreat lines, it showed attack vectors aimed directly at the heart of the Kethvar fleet. The Kethvar are powerful, but they are also arrogant. They have conquered so many civilizations that they have forgotten what it means to face an enemy who fights without hesitation. They expect you to retreat. They expect you to defend. They do not expect you to attack. The High Admiral laughed. "Attack? With what forces? They outnumber us 3-1. Numbers mean nothing if you strike at the right targets." Marcus highlighted several points on the map. Their command ships, their communication relays, their supply lines. Destroy these, and their fleet becomes a scattered mob. The losses would be catastrophic. A general protested. "The losses will be catastrophic either way," Marcus replied. "The only question is whether those losses buy you centuries of slow defeat or one chance at victory." Silence fell over the hall. The Volanthi generals stared at the human with expressions ranging from shock to anger. "This is not how war is fought," the High Admiral said finally. "This is not civilized." "No," Marcus agreed. "It is not civilized. It is human." The council voted against his plan. The High Admiral's strategy of retreat was approved. The meeting ended, and the generals filed out, already planning for a war that would last generations. That night, Selvaria found Marcus on the observation deck. He stood at the great window, watching the stars. "They rejected your plan," she said. "I expected they would. It was a good plan, reckless, but good." Marcus turned to face her. It would need someone with the power to act alone, someone willing to risk everything on a chance. Selvaria understood what he was asking. Her fleet, her authority, her career, her life. "If we fail, we will be remembered as fools who threw away everything for nothing," she said. "Yes, if we succeed, we will still have lost so many. Friends, soldiers, perhaps even each other." "Yes." She walked to stand beside him. Together they looked out at the stars, at the darkness that held both death and possibility. "You have shown me what humans can do with one short lifetime," she said softly. "Perhaps it is time I learned to stop wasting mine." She took his hand. "Let us go save the galaxy." The 7th Radiant Fleet launched at dawn. 300 ships, under the direct command of Princess Empress, Selvaria, following a battle plan designed by her human consort. They did not retreat. They did not defend. They attacked. The Kethvar were not ready. For 1,000 years, every civilization they conquered had fallen back, had tried to wait them out, had played the slow game of attrition. No one had ever simply charged at them. Selvaria's fleet hit the enemy command structure like a hammer. They moved at speeds that should have been impossible, making decisions in seconds rather than hours. Marcus directed the battle from the flagship bridge, reading enemy patterns and calling out targets with inhuman speed. Human speed. Some of the Volanthi officers would later say. They had never seen anything like it. The HFY command ship fell in 3 days. Without it, their coordinated assault fell apart. Scattered and confused, the enemy fleet became vulnerable. Selvaria pressed the attack without mercy. 3 weeks later, the invasion had collapsed. 3 months later, the HFY Archon knelt before the Volanthi throne and offered his surrender. The galaxy watched in stunned amazement. The ancient enemy, defeated. The impossible victory, achieved. And at the center of it all, a human soldier standing beside his Volanthi wife. Selvaria addressed the galaxy from the steps of the royal palace. Billions watched across countless worlds. You underestimated them, she said, looking at the defeated Archon. As I once did. As every species does at first. She turned to face the cameras, to face the watching billions. Humans are not lesser beings burdened by short lives. They are concentrated beings. Everything we spread across millennia, they compress into a single century. Their love, their rage, their ambition, their hope. They burn brighter, because they burn briefly. She raised Marcus's hand in hers. The galaxy belongs to those who refuse to accept defeat, to those who fight against the dying light, to those who make every moment matter. Today, humanity has proven that they are worthy partners in this great universe. Not servants, not pets, not conquered subjects. Partners, equals, family. The broadcast reached 400 billion viewers. Humans everywhere watched their vindication. Achieved not through conquest, but through the courage of one man who refused to be less than equal. Marcus Cole served as prince consort for 63 years. He and Selvaria had children who carried both human determination and Volanthi grace. The alliance they built became the foundation of a new era. When Marcus finally died, peacefully, surrounded by those he loved, Selvaria spoke at his memorial. He taught me that time is not a river to drift along, she said. It is a fire to be seized. He taught me that mortality is not a curse. It is a gift. The gift of meaning. Every moment precious because every moment passes. Tears flowed down her glowing face. He taught me to burn. The statue they built in his honor on Volanthi Prime stood 30 feet tall. It showed a human man looking up at the stars, his face filled with quiet determination. The inscription read simply, "Here stands Marcus Cole. He was given one lifetime. He used every moment. He never stopped. He never gave up. He showed the galaxy what humanity can be. And beneath that, in the high Volanthi language, he burned bright, and his light will never fade." Across the galaxy, humans read those words and stood a little taller. They had been told they were weak. They had been told they were temporary. They had been told they did not matter. Marcus Cole had proven otherwise, and the galaxy would never forget.